We allowed to let Chris up here on this level?
Evidently we are.
I've never, all the years that I've been going to these meetings, I've never sat up here.
Probably for a reason.
I mean.
It's a different
I guess we
perspective.
should-
Well, that's right. It's a whole different view up here, Chris.
Touche, Dad, touche.
You're gonna get along with Craig now that you're sitting up here.
I just feel like I'm part of the team.
It's just.
Oh, wait till he sees my comments on some of his reviews here.
That's me. All right.
This is a little tight.
I'll follow your lead, Dad. I know, you know, it's Heather's idea.
Gonna be lonely down there tonight.
Don't get used to it, kid.
Well, we can only turn on your mic. We can turn Chris's off.
Here you go, Luke. Here's the agenda.
I've always called it Lalani. Me too. Yeah, the lane I've heard, but to me, that's one end, and being that it has two ends, I've gone Lalani. Yeah. I don't know if we could find a. We have to find. I have to find somebody that's lived there that long.
Well, I've lived in this neighborhood for a long time. So
What's that, Dan?
it's a lot.
That's what I've always heard.
Has it changed?
But it's a virtual one, so, and somebody-
We've got two discussion items. Yep.
We do. So.
Okay, I guess we can get started. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this workshop meeting, the Town of Henrietta Planning Board on Tuesday, September 19th, 2023. Members present, Matt Borkowski, Craig Eckert, Walter Liss, Robert Barley, Marcy Reynolds, Dan Mastrella, Planning Board Attorney, town staff, Chris Martin, Director of Planning and Engineering, and Luke Bushin, Deputy Director of Planning and Engineering. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll invite the board to stand for that, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Play ball. Play ball. Okay, the first item this evening are the minutes from the August 15th, 2023 meeting. Does anybody have any comments or concerns with the minutes as they were submitted? Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Barley, thank you. Second, please.
Second.
Mrs. Reynolds, thank you. Discussion?
I'll abstain. So was
Abstain. Thank you, Mr. Liss. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Any of the chairs, the ayes have it. We have minutes from the last meeting. Okay, first application tonight, application number 23-013, Henrietta Apartments. This is for final site plan approval of two multifamily apartment buildings containing a total of 101 units located at 2160 East Henrietta Road in a commercial B2 district with a mixed-use redevelopment corridor overlay district. Good evening, welcome. I'll have you introduce yourself and then the floor is yours.
Certainly. Good evening. My name is Brad Simmons from Civil and Environmental Consultants, here on behalf of AR Building Company to present the Henrietta Apartments located at 2160 and 2132 East Henrietta Road. I also have Emily Mitchell from AR Building Company that's online as well. So the subject property is approximately 8.46 acres located in the B2 zoning district, as well as the mixed use overlay, which allows apartment buildings with special use approval, which we received per resolution 17-286-2023. As mentioned, the applicant is proposing the construction of two 4-story apartment buildings consisting of 101 units, as well as a clubhouse with a swimming pool for residence use. Other site improvements include drive paths, parking, and secondary emergency access, as well as stormwater management facility, and all associated utilities. Our proposed design meets all bulk regulations outlined in the ordinance, except for parking requirements. We are seeking a variance to allow us to reduce the parking ratio from 2.5 parking spaces per dwelling to 1.56 spaces per dwelling. We're able to justify the reduction based on precedents set by the standards utilized by the AR Building Company in many of their developments across the country. With this reduction, we're able to reduce the impervious area and conserve approximately 15,000 square feet of undisturbed land. With the reduction in impervious area from the parking variance, the project is proposing approximately 5.75 acres of open space, with nearly 4 of those acres being completely undisturbed. In addition to maintaining nearly half of the project site undisturbed, the applicant has also agreed to plant additional plantings to supplement the existing buffer yards where disease has recently affected the woodlands. The storm runoff management has been designed to meet local and state standards and will be conveyed to a private bioretention stormwater management facility located on the eastern portion of the project. The stormwater will ultimately be conveyed to an existing system along the Lane Road. The remaining utilities are all pretty standard and will be reviewed by the local service providers. Overall, in conclusion, we've taken this process with the community and the town very seriously. We want to make sure that this development will be completed with the highest of standards and will be something that the community can be proud of. We want to thank you in advance for your time. And at this point, if anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. We also brought along some building samples as well.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we appreciate that. You received the town comments. Did you have any concerns with any of those? Any deal breakers in your opinion there?
No
Okay,
deal breakers.
okay, very good. All right, I will begin this evening. Chair will recognize Mr. Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
I guess were the elevations part of the set that we were given?
They should be, yes.
I didn't see them in anything we had, Chris.
Should be at
It
the
should
end.
have been in there.
I want to say it was the last 4 pages, maybe.
Oh, of the
Part of the
actual plan set?
It's part of the actual plans.
Fix this. So there is some work in that buffer though, right? That's what this is, right?
Yeah.
Luke, do you have access to that? Can you hit unmute? Thank you. So that's work that's planned in the buffer area.
Correct.
Okay. So that would be something I'd be interested in, and also making sure that that got established. Okay. Why not 2 full entrances? Why a fire entrance that's gated and then another one that's an access?
The secondary access was requested by the town board during our special use permit process.
But why is it not a full access and only a fire access?
It was only requested to be a secondary emergency access.
Okay, but it's gonna be gated like 20, 30 feet in?
Correct.
So-
Yeah, there's enough space for a ladder truck to be able to park off the East Henrietta Road before the gate.
Okay, but then if people pull in and then stop because they don't realize it's not an entrance, they have to back out to East Henrietta Road?
Ultimately, we could clearly, mark it with signs.
Is there a reason just not to make it a full entrance?
Only because the town board only requested the emergency. I think that there has been, from my understanding, some discussions that they would like to see it the DOT may like to see it as a second entrance, but we haven't received that as a formal comment yet.
Okay, so you haven't walked through the DOT permit yet.
We started the beginning of the perm 33.
Okay. Well, I think I would be more interested to see if that was either gated closer, which I don't know if you can do with the fire department, or made a full access, or one an ingress, one an egress. If that became.
Yeah, we just haven't received a formal comment in regards to a complete secondary access. We originally did have the gate closer to the road, but then was requested to push it back enough for a truck to get off the road.
Okay, so I have a concern, I guess, about that access. Chris, we can talk about that offline after, I guess, okay?
Sure.
I didn't see, I saw some things missing from the lighting plan as far as height of the poles. And the rest of the information off the lumens and the luminaires that were scheduled. I passed it already.
Hi, this is Emily Mitchell with AR Building Company. I just wanted to say that if the permitting allows it, we can look at making that second access road a full access road.
So I did a search on the descriptions of these first. I don't see any pole heights in this table.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what the heights of the poles are supposed to be.
Okay, yeah, we can certainly add those.
Okay, look. All right, well, I don't know how to comment on anything if I don't know what the heights are, what effect it's gonna have. I mean, this plan was done with a certain pole height probably scheduled, but.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the way that we have it designed now meets the ordinance, from my understanding. We just need to clarify the pole height.
Right, and I know what that is.
Do you know offhand, Brad, how hard or how high the poles are?
No, I would have to go back and look.
So we're not sure if we're 14 feet or 30 feet.
I doubt it would be 30 feet. I mean, so are you referring to perhaps a height restriction per ordinance?
I'm worried about how much light spill off to the residents this is gonna be, so I need to understand what the pole height is to understand what this plan is gonna show. What kind of light spill, what kind of thing we're dealing with here. I mean, I can ask for cutoffs to the back sides too. I know we still have a lot of vegetation back here, but to be honest, I don't know how much on the east side is deciduous versus coniferous, how much is gonna drop, how much you're gonna be able to see through, so still looking to see, I think, on the east side, cutoff shields to the rear. But at 14 feet, it may not be of any issue. If it's 20 or 25, it will be.
Right.
So I wasn't able to see, I did see 3000 K, so that's good, so it's a lower light level. But I didn't get to see, some of these are XXXs and some of this information isn't filled in. So I wasn't able to research completely what kind of lights we're looking at. Not to mention the pole height that's on there. So it says that there's a pole height, but I didn't see it. So that's, so I'd like to see that pole height, and I would like to see a com check. Your electrical designer that did this should have done a com check for New York State DEC or for New York State code to show what the light levels are, to see what they are in com check for the state.
Okay.
So I'd like to see that com check. I also, not sure this is I haven't seen this note before, but let's see. Lumen output is based on anticipated lumen output at half of the rated life of the LEDs. So this is running a foot candle spectrum based off a lumen that's already at 50% life.
From my understanding, yeah, to kind of take an average perhaps of the lifespan of the LED itself.
I'm gonna want to see this, I guess, at full light level. I've never seen one done that it's only been 50% life.
Sure.
And that's what the light, and that's what the com check should be based on too, not at a half life. That's what people are gonna be staring at now. Not in, I mean, these are 20, 25-year lumens, not 10, 12 years from now. So that's what we're trying to, monitor for the residents that are close to this, that have expressed these issues with the lights and how much they're gonna see and what they're gonna have to deal with. Not just headlights coming in, but light spills from this. And, if lights are also going up on the buildings, how high? I didn't see that. I didn't see anything else listed here as far as wall mounts. Are there any other wall mount lights?
Most likely they will be on the buildings, but I wouldn't foresee them being overpowering of the surface lights for the parking and drive past.
No, but that's something that should definitely be taken into account to the luminaire schedule and on the schedule as far as what the lights are. So that should be on here too. In my mind, I thought that those were usually wall mounts are usually on the plans that we see.
Yeah, typically we do like to see them to make sure they're not a wall pack, but they're a downlight.
Mhm.
So they meet the dark sky compliant.
So the com check, the height of the poles, cut off to the backs. I didn't see complete lighting info on this. And then the lumen output measured and anticipated. We talked about that. Additional increase of the buffer. Then I made some comments that not all the details appear to be Henrietta details. So that's something that can be clarified through the review process, but I don't know why they're not on there now. I mean, this has gone through a couple rounds. I thought that these would be pretty close to being done. But the cleanouts and other details that are on here that are specific to town utilities are not town details. So those are the comments that I saw in my review. I wasn't able to do a complete review on the lighting, which is a pretty complicated issue, I think, for this project with the review. So those are the comments that I have, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Eckert.
Thank you.
Good job. Chair will recognize Mr. Borkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Brad, did you sign in on the list back here?
Yes.
Okay, and if you can leave a card, if it's possible, if not, that'll do, but thank you. As far as the application goes, on general, B3, it talks about, the parking lot is located within the 100-foot transitional buffer. And that will either need to be shifted out of that buffer, or we as a planning board need to talk about a reduction in the buffer.
Yeah,
Where do we
so,
stand?
yeah, so from my understanding, there's I think 4 parking spaces that are within that area. And I think that we can find those in another location on the site plan.
Okay, so you're just removing those 4.
Correct, yeah.
And also the thing that concerns me, with how this is graded, the site distance plans, how are we looking on how these site distances are going to look along East Henrietta Road?
The site distances are clear.
No problem at all?
Mm-mm. Yep.
That's what I like to hear. Also, you have requested a variance, for the number of parking spots.
Correct.
So is that part of the 4 you just told me, or is there more than that you're looking to either move or?
That is in addition to the 4. Yeah, the 4 has not.
So what's the requirement that it's supposed to be?
I believe that the requirement's 252, and we currently are proposing 158, which gives you a ratio of 1.53 or 1.56.
That's quite
I think
a,
it's 1.56.
that's quite a big change.
It is, however, if you look at the base number, 1.5 is really kind of a default within the industry. And we provided some information with our application, our variance application, as well as the town board during our special use permit that shows multiple other developments that AR Building Company is running successfully with a parking ratio similar.
Okay. And either way, you got to get the variance, so I'll leave that to them. And also we had, Craig, did you talk about setbacks already? I was kind of writing stuff down, sorry.
Just the buffer. I think I
Okay.
wanted to determine what that actual buffer was, the 100-foot on the east side that is in a sense going to be disturbed. That's what I was referring to.
Okay, so this mentions on B10 that the required setbacks for this facility should be 60 feet per section 295 of town code. Is there something wrong with this where it's not 60?
No, I don't think so. We have 60 along the front and then 100 along residential areas.
Okay. Yeah, we have a lot of, I'm not going to go through these point by point. Those are my important ones. And according to the chairman, you guys can answer all these.
Yes.
Is there anything that's more important than something else, Chris, Mr. Martin? Because
I
we have a
mean,
lot of comments here.
Yeah, I mean, certainly when this went through the special use permit process, the big concern was buffers, drainage, sewer access. And as part of going through that process, the applicant was able to get an easement to the south of the property through Rolia Drive to handle the drainage issue. And they also purchased the property to the north. That was part of the Magic Florist, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
So because they were able to do that, they were able to shift the buildings around a little bit to gain more buffer space to the east. That was really our main concern, because initially the there was a 100-foot transitional buffer, but a lot of that was the pond. Because the pond was relocated when they redid this plan. So, you know, based on all the meetings that we had with the town board and want to say there was probably 4 or 5 altogether, this is kind of the end product of that. There's certainly some technical issues that have to be resolved, but that's typical for any project that we see.
Okay, thanks, Chris. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Borkowski.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna, if I may.
Yes, Mr.
add on to
Eckert.
Mr. Burkowski's comment, because I think I was thought on me that this too. Are those trees proposed in the right of way? Come on.
Yeah, that was one of our comments, Craig, that
Yeah.
if they are
You're gonna
going
pull
to
back. That's your site distance comment, Matt. I'm sorry. I was just noticing that these are in the right of way. They probably shouldn't be.
Yeah, there should also be, just to go back on the site distance, there should be a plan that shows the layout of the site distance.
Yeah, that'll be with your current 33 probably, sure.
Correct.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to
That's
add
fine.
that with his comment.
Thank you. Chair will recognize Mr. Barley.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Mr. Simmons, is there a plan to go back before the town board for anything?
No, we received our special use permit at the end of August. The only other outstanding item is the variance that we'll be going for,
Mhm.
and then also administrative for a lot consolidation or re-subdivision.
So like Mr. Eckert, I'm kind of concerned about the other access to this project. Most projects want dual access to roads for safety and ease of flow. Do you guys not want that?
Hi, this is Emily
Again,
Mitchell
you know,
with
we haven't
AR.
received it as a formal comment. I don't want to speak on the applicant, however, you know, I think that from their experience that the one entrance of a development this size would be suffice. However, you know, we can certainly have that discussion. But again, we just haven't received a formal comment on it.
Okay. Is there another project like this anywhere else you can point to?
Certainly, there are a handful of, well, it looks like perhaps Emily has some comments, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Hi, Emily.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Maybe her volume's not on. Maybe it's muted.
Are you muted?
I'll continue until she gets
Sure.
it right. You asked for really a huge reduction in parking from 262 to 158. Is there any plan for any land bank parking?
There isn't at the moment. That's why we were going for the variance. But you do have to keep in mind that these are 1 and 2 bedroom apartments.
Mhm.
So most likely you're not going to have families with teenagers and things like that. And of the 101 units, almost 60% of those are single family or 1 bedroom apartments.
One bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
You know, we got a lot of college students in our area. They show up everywhere.
No, really?
And so they bring cars, lots of cars and lots of friends. So I would ask you to consider some land bank parking. Just in case you need it later. It just sounds like a good idea.
Keep in mind too, there is a bus stop relatively close.
Oh, yeah, okay. What about snow storage and removal?
That's one comment that we received that we will make the adjustment to. Just off the top of my head, I'm thinking maybe around the turn there or you know, one of the dead ends that we have.
Okay.
And I received, I apologize, I received a message from Emily. She says that they would be more than happy to do a full second entrance.
Okay,
I
all
I
right,
see Emily is logged off the blog.
Okay. that'd be great.
I don't know if she still can hear us now or she can speak. Go ahead, Emily.
Can you hear me now?
No, sorry, I still can't hear you. I saw you. I'm sorry, Mr. Bradley, go ahead if I.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, Brad, that you guys are willing to do a second entrance. That would help, you know, for safety reasons and flow of traffic. This is a time. I don't have anything else, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah.
Barley. Yes, I'm happy to hear that too. I was concerned with the single entrance. I think that's going to be very beneficial for convenience sake and as Mr. Barley said, safety. So thank you, Emily, for confirming that with us. The chair will recognize Mr. List.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Have you decided on the the berm or fencing to block the headlights to the east, to those homeowners in the east?
Yeah, I believe that most likely it will be a fence.
A fence?
Mhm.
All right. And there'll be lighting around, is there lighting around the pool area?
Correct, yeah. There'll be a
There is.
fence around the pool as well.
Just do you provide all your own property and landscape maintenance, or does AR Building contract out locally?
I would have to double check with AR. I'm not certain on that. I know that they do the majority of their building. As far as landscaping, I'm not certain if that's something that they do in-house.
Yeah, and that's, how about EV charging stations for residents?
There are no plans at the moment for EV.
There are no
stations.
plans?
No. Mm.
Is that something that
I mean, the applicant.
you might consider?
Yeah, I think that they would consider it.
I
Yeah.
think they would consider that. Okay. Just a swimming pool question. Is it planned to be a saltwater pool or a conventional chlorine pool?
I would have to double check with
I just think in terms of maintenance, saltwater seems to be the way that the trend is going now, and
I agree.
and,
And it seems as though it seems to be that's the most common.
all right.
I think Emily may have mentioned here that it would be a conventional pool.
Okay. All right. Just this is a town related question. We have 3-year landscaping maintenance agreements. Correct?
Correct.
And yet in the Stantec comment it said there's a 2-year maintenance agreement, which is correct. The 3-year. Are there any thoughts to expand that to like a 5-year? Just in my opinion, there are many commercial properties around Henrietta that have let their landscaping and their property maintenance decline over the years. And it would just keep a developer like AR close to to develop this property. Because I've looked at your other projects around the country, all beautiful places. And you own all of them. They're not
Right. AR's here for the long
long haul. So I think it would be very important that we have.
Yeah, we had that discussion with the conservation board and we completely have agreed to accept the 3 years. No problem at all.
Okay.
So if I might, jump in on that, we did move, I think it was maybe even last year, from 2 to 3 years at the request of our certified arborist who sit on the conservation board.
All right.
Going to 5, I think is tough. It's hard for these companies to get bonds for up to 5 years or guarantees up to 5 years. It's a long time for banks to cover stuff like that. But at that pace, I think it's almost a code issue versus a installation. It's been installed, it's living. So, that's the 3 years that we're trying to determine. Maintenance of that, I think, is different from the installation, is what we're trying to treat that as a code issue.
Yeah, and that's exactly right, Craig. I mean, we also hold 10% of the total landscaping cost for that 3-year period. So to hold it another 2 years it's a long time for the applicant.
All right. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking forward to this project. I don't know how long it would take. What would be your ETA and completion?
I think that, hopes would be to break ground as soon as the weather clears in 2024. As soon as they can, and then most likely, they'll be building throughout the summer.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your
Thanks for
time.
coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. List. The chair will recognize Mrs. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Just a couple quick questions. I read that there is going to be a traffic barrier to avoid cut through into the residential areas. Can you
Correct.
show me where that would be?
Yeah, so just real quick, this was based on conversations that we had with the town board during our special use permit. There was concerns with the neighbors along the Lane Road that it could, work as a throughway from East Henrietta to their location. And essentially all that would be is just a fence that we recently discussed. That'll be along this eastern portion here.
Okay. Thank you. Also the detention basin, is there going to be any additional security around it or just is it going to be open?
Yeah, at the moment, there isn't a fence
No
proposed. I don't think I saw a requirement in the ordinance for that.
It's not a town requirement.
Okay.
We leave it up to the applicant because they're the ones that are going to maintain it.
I was just curious because of the number of people in the apartments and then the residential area, if that would be an issue, a safety issue.
I will say that it
Not-
is a fairly shallow pond in
It is.
consideration to majority of them.
Okay. And then one last question. I was reading that it's adjacent to a sensitive archaeological site.
I did not receive that feedback.
Okay, yeah, it just says it was checked yes, and I wasn't sure if you had any additional information on that.
I do not know. I will have to double check that.
And has a traffic study been done yet?
It was determined that from the DOT that a full-blown traffic study was not required.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry, I have Emily here. She's shooting me messages here. But she said that they'll use landscaping for a deterrent to the pond,
A barrier.
access to the
around-
pond. Yeah,
Thank you.
Great.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mrs.
What are
Reynolds.
they using for the deterrent plantings, you said?
correct. Yeah, landscaping.
Brad, is this project going to be phased?
No, I don't believe so.
No phasing, okay. Okay, good.
Yeah, I don't know why I can't get Emily. I'd like to try to figure that out. If she does need to speak, I know she's texting to clarify or set her face, but
Where does the volume usually come out? TV? Through the speaker?
yeah, it's usually through that. And
Hi, Emily, we see you.
I'm trying.
Oh,
Oh, you can hear me now.
We hear you.
Oh, great. Oh, good. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for all your questions, and I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. And Brad, thank you for reading my text as you go along and present at the same time. So good job. I really appreciate that. I did want to say regarding the second entrance, I hear your comments about that, and we will certainly look into that. I just want to say one thing, that I just need to make sure that we can get the permitting to do so and get that second entrance from whomever is reviewing that. That's my only qualification regarding that second entrance.
You're saying, did you need a permit for that? Is that what you said?
New York State DOT.
Oh, DOT, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I just need to make sure they approve it. But if they are okay with it, then yes, we would certainly do the second entrance.
Okay, yeah, I think that's gonna be a very positive part of the project if we can do that.
Okay.
Great. Any final comments, Emily?
No, I just want to, thank you for all your comments. I know there was questions about landscaping and who maintains it. I do want to just reiterate that we own all of our properties for the long term. We maintain all of them ourselves, and that we're happy to do that 3-year landscape warranty because, we'll be replacing anything that comes up anyway. So that's just, we try to maintain our properties to the higher standards, because if they don't look good, frankly, we can't get people to rent our building. So it's very important to us.
How many properties do you have?
We have about 50 communities. We're in 10 states now. So about 9,000 to 9,500 units. This will be our first project to New York, but we're looking at a couple other sites in New York as well. We're also expanding into other areas like Illinois and Maine. So we expect to grow probably by 1,000 to 2,000 units over the next couple of years.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brad, any final comments from you, sir?
No.
Okay. Mr. Martin?
Speaker's already been completed. So it's up to you and the board to decide what you want to do.
Okay, Mr. Mistrell, anything from your chair, sir?
There's some substantial missing items as far as, finally decided upon in this. And, there should be some conditions. Certainly, the receipt of the parking variance is going to be a condition of any approval. And based on the comments I heard from the board, the the subject to approval shouldn't be taken by the zoning board as an endorsement of the variance, nor should it be taken as any opposition to the variance. I think you want that second access. I think you should make it a condition. And if you, to appease the applicant, maybe you can make it a condition unless New York State DOT denies the permit. As far as the lighting goes, the inability to tell us what the height of the lights is a bit troubling. Even if it's not on the plan, they should be able to tell us what that is. And I don't know if you want to set a maximum height that would require them to come back if they can't meet it, but I would suggest you might want to do that because as Craig said, I don't know if it's going to be 30 feet or 14 feet, and nobody thinks it's going to be 30 feet, but be that as it may, it's an open question. And the landscaping around the pond should probably be another condition. As a deterrent landscaping, not necessarily decorative landscaping.
And then a little sidebar, Dan was asking if that was something that I would want to table, was the lights. I'm not sure I'm comfortable tabling, but I think I'd like to hear from the board, the rest of the board, and what their interests are in that light and height.
Sorry, back to the lighting. We certainly have the information on the lighting. They must not have just made it to the plans. But either way is if the height of the lighting is within the ordinance, the photometric plan shows that we're compliant by keeping the requirements.
Then what's the ordinance?
On the property. I'm
What's
sorry.
the ordinance then?
I would have to double check.
Yes, right, so I don't know what that is either. That's why plans should come complete, so that we understand what we're looking at based off of, when we plan height, pole height can change. There's a lot of varying in that pole height depending on commercial, industrial, residential, where it's next to. So the plan should be complete so that I can understand and respond properly with comments.
Understood.
So without having that information, I don't know how to, honestly, I don't know how to prove it.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a suggestion?
Yes, Mr. Martin.
We've done this before with building elevations and landscaping. As Dan said, we could certainly do a conditioned site plan approval with the understanding that the lighting plan either has to come back as an administrative review for maybe Craig and I and any other of the planning board members. Or as also, as Dan mentioned, that, we say that you can't go over X amount of feet. And if you do that, then you have to come back for the board just for the lighting. So.
And I'm confident that we can get the lighting, situated. Like I said, from my understanding, the consultant that we use provided it to us following the township's ordinance. I apologize that I don't remember those requirements off the top of my head, but I'm certain that we can get that to work out.
So probably the first option that Chris mentioned would be the more appropriate one, because he'll take it via email or whatever back to the board as to what the height is proposed. And then if you have a problem, you just put that
They can come back.
condition in and you can bring them back if you have to.
Okay,
Very good.
okay.
Okay with the rest of the board?
Sounds good to me.
All right, so
Height now.
No, we're just gonna have, we're gonna leave it open for discussion to the rest of us, which we see that information. If we're comfortable with the height at that point, we can, if we're not, we can bring it back.
Yeah, so you just add a condition that the lighting plan is subject to administrative approval upon consultation with the planning board, and if it's not approved, they have to come back.
And Dan, what was, you'd mentioned something earlier that our approval did not endorse or deny something from, was that the zoning?
Yeah, so it's in reference to the zoning board, so that, it kind of represents in a fashion to the zoning board when this has gone through town board approval and planning board approval with a representation that there's going to be almost one space per unit less than what is required, that everybody's okay with that and endorsing it, and they should just approve it. And my thought is, based on what I heard from board members, it doesn't seem like anybody's a big fan of that big a reduction. So I think that the zoning board should be advised that if in fact you're not endorsing the variance, but not urging them to deny it either, that they just be aware that your conditional approval doesn't mean that you're suggesting that the zoning board should approve it.
Okay.
Is there any chance of land banking any parking, Brad?
We would have to take a look at it. Yeah, I'm not certain off the top of my head.
Okay,
With the buffers, it makes it very difficult to do that.
Yeah.
okay.
Me, I'm fine with pavement reduction. I mean, it cools, it's easier, it's more greenery, as long as they meet what they want, you're right? I mean, I understand the code, but our code is a little, I think, sometimes excessive. I don't know if it is in this case.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I
Nope.
think what we're finding for a lot of the apartment complexes that come to the town, that most of them request some type of variance for reduction of parking. And, the old days, 2.5 basin, I think we're seeing it at 1.5 and 1.8, depending on the use. If it's, like a senior housing, obviously it's closer to the 1.5. If it's even student housing, believe it or not, it's actually a little bit less, not less, but around that 1.5 to 1.7. So I think as a town, that's something we need to take a look at. But again, this is a zoning board issue, as Dan mentioned.
Yeah, and in my experience, 2.5 is extremely high. And again, we have to keep in mind, excuse me, we're dealing with 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, majority of which are 1-bedroom apartments. And also, as you mentioned, we're able to keep a lot of approximately 15,000 square feet that would otherwise be, nobody wants a parking,
I hate to see parking spaces that are never used.
Right.
I'd be all for that reduction for an addition with the EV chargers like Walt has.
We've also provided, again, for the special use permit to the town board and as well to the variance application, a list of, I want to say probably 5 or 6 other AR developments that are operating sufficiently at a similar rate.
Yeah, I can speak to this a little bit, Brad. So thanks, everybody. So, we get this question a lot from different towns as parking requirements kind of go in and out. But we, what we find that really works for us is 1.2 spaces per unit. And that covers both guest spaces and those visiting our leasing office and for our residents, where we have a similar mix of 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. Lots of times you'll find our 2-bedroom apartments are used for a single person who's looking for an office or a couple that share their car. Frankly, I think we're at 1.6 with this site. That's more than adequate to meet our residents' needs. And when we know that from experience is from communities like this all over the kind of the Eastern United States, communities that are not in real urban areas, but kind of in areas very similar to this with a similar unit mix. So I'm really comfortable that we will have more than adequate parking here. And frankly, we have to look at this and we have to know this, because if we can't provide parking for our residents, we won't be able to rent our units. So this is how we know that this really works for us.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, well, the chair will entertain a motion. I need some help, Dan, with wording this. In fact, the chair will make a motion to approve application 23-013, conditional approve,
Yeah, I wrote this all down. You want to hear it?
did you? Yes, yeah, go ahead, Mr. Borkowski.
Motion
Thank you.
would be conditional on the following. One, parking variance must be approved. A subset of that is the zoning board is not to construe that our conditional approval as a variance and a variance endorsement. Two, second full access required. If DOT denies permitting, applicant must come back to the planning board. Three, lighting must be administratively approved. And four, landscape around pond for safety must go in.
And on the second access condition, the way I would, the way I do that is that the second access will be a full access unless New York DOT denies the permit. You don't want to have to come back if they get denied the permit, right?
So we would just default to the emergency that we originally designed.
Yes,
Can you do one thing, Brad, if it defaults to that? Put up signage so people aren't turning and trying to get out of there.
Absolutely.
That can be dangerous on that road.
Yep, absolutely.
Did I get everything else, Dan?
Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to make the, did you put in the lighting?
Lighting must be administratively approved is what I put.
And, the landscaping around the pond, did you want that in?
the deterrent landscaping, yep. Okay, very good. So, Mr. Borkowski, would you like the motion?
I will second it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, the motion carries.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Appreciate your time.
Brad. Emily, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
It's good enough, huh? You didn't want to touch and feel the materials.
Get up and go get it.
There was so much stuff going on.
See what happens.
The next application this evening is application number PB 329.1. This is Lehigh Ridge subdivision, section 1, for final subdivision approval of a 57 lot, single family residential subdivision on 22.8 acres with 2.64 acres of open space located off of Nevins Road and Authors Avenue in an R115 residential zoned district. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is James Creticos. I'm with BME Associates. Also here with me this evening is Bruce Howlett and Paul Egan from Learwood Estates. They're the applicant. As the chairman just mentioned, we're here for final section 1 of the Lehigh Ridge subdivision. This section is going to be 22.8 acres of our overall 69.5 acre property site. This is a cluster subdivision. And we have been before you for this project a couple of years ago. We originally did our concept planning board meeting with you guys in March of 21. Following that, we submitted overall preliminary plans. We were at your planning board meeting in September of 21, where you guys deferred the lead agency to the town board. Over the next about 6 months or so, we worked with them on several of the seeker conditions. We did do a seeker conditional approval for this project. There are several town amenities that are being promised or contributed as part of the project, and I'll get to those in a little bit. In May of 2020, they then, or I'm sorry, March of 2020 and May of 2022, they issued the seeker conditional negative determination. After that, we came back to the planning board in March or June of 2022 for the overall preliminary subdivision approval. And then the night after that, the town board then accepted the open space that we had proposed at the time. Since that time, we've kind of finished up the overall preliminary plan approvals, got plan signatures. We've also worked on a grading permit with the town. So we do have a little bit of construction ongoing at the site already. And then we did submit our final section 1 plans and are here with you this evening. We also did attend the conservation board for the final section 1 a couple weeks ago, mainly to review the landscaping because that component was not included in the overall preliminary plan submission. So our project as it stands now is going to be on the western portion of our site. It will consist of 57 lots of the 110 total for the overall subdivision. This section is going to connect to the Nevins Road. Yeah, Craig, you do have that rendering, I believe.
Yeah, I'm sitting here looking at it and reminding me I could share it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So we are connecting on the western end of our site to the Nevins Road stub as it is today. With the future sections, likely section 2, we'll be making the Authors Ave connection. However, as one of the seeker condition approvals, we are building a construction access drive that extends from the cul-de-sac on the eastern portion of the site, off-site through the Aardvark rugby fields and all the way connects to their entrance on East Henrietta Road. That road is going to be for our construction traffic, and it's going to exist through the perpetuity of the project. We're going to bring all our loaded tractor trailers and stuff there to avoid coming through in and out of the subdivision. Public water extend just from the Nevins Road stub. It'll extend 8-inch main up through the site and serve section 1. A loop will be completed with a connection to Authors Ave with the future sections to kind of create that system. The whole water system through that existing subdivision is looped several times with all the cross streets already. Public sewer, same for section 1, we're going to extend from Nevins Road. That's going to come up the Nevins Road extension as well as along Road A, which is kind of the finger there. All the wastewater from this section, as well as the 2 cul-de-sacs in the southwestern portion of the site, are going to drain via Nevins Road. Once we get to the future section, we will make another connection onto Authors, and that will come up and then serve kind of the eastern portion of the site. Drainage and storm sewers are, were all kind of reviewed during the overall preliminary process. We do have an open SWIP, we have an open NOI. We have started some initial grading and erosion control work on the site, as well as clearing and some landscaping in some of the open space areas already. Drainage is going to be handled by a combination of utilizing the existing stormwater or the existing ponds that were constructed with the Belfry Golf Course about 20 years ago. We're going to put some engineered outlet structures on there to help control the water elevations in most of the ponds. And then in the northwestern corner of the site, the one kind of immediately adjacent to Nevins Road, that's a constructed stormwater facility we're building in the Power Authority easement area. And then the other one that's in the open space area, just kind of behind like lots 1 through 8 there. That's an existing pond. We're going to augment it and turn it into, a DEC type stormwater facility. And those last 2 facilities are going to discharge, and those really control all the flow rates basically leaving our project site. One of the conditions was to help improve some of the drainage along the rear of the homes over by Authors Ave. As part of the project, we're connecting the existing pond that's over there today to the central one. And then that pond is going to connect to the one that we're building below the Power Authority easement. So we're effectively going to take a pretty good contribution of drainage area that goes to that pond today and take it away from those homes. That pond doesn't have an outlet structure, so it really just either overflows when it rains hard enough into the low area behind those rear yards, or it just seeps through the berm. And the town does have a catch basin right at the end of Authors Ave, so the water does get into that and get conveyed up through the subdivision. But by us doing this augmentation, we're really just taking away a lot of that drainage, as well as giving it a place to flow once it rains, where it's not going to impact those residents as much as it does today. Landscaping for the project, like I mentioned, this is one new component with the final section 1. We currently are proposing 169 trees, as well as 102 shrubs around the 2 constructed stormwater facilities I'm keep referencing over by the Nevins Road condition. So our effective tree plant count on our plans today is 220 trees. We have 157 lots, so the section 1 requirement is only about 114. So we're actually satisfying the overall subdivision planting requirements with section 1. We do intend to, plant more street trees and things once we get in the future sections. And I know Bruce and Paul are very being proactive about the throughway screening and vegetation. Because we already were out on the site, we've done some initial the clearing and stuff. There are some areas that we felt needed additional plantings incorporated, specifically kind of along the southern central lots there. A lot of the vegetation when we did our survey and stuff is more brushy. It's not really providing as good of a buffer. So I know they actually were delivering trees out to the site today. I think they're actually planning on planting some out there tomorrow. And then we've also already planted approximately 75 trees in the open space area, kind of the central. It's a shaded out kind of between those 3 ponds. So that's an open space area. They're going to work on, on trails and some other things in there, really kind of improving that before we dedicate it to the town. But a lot of those plantings are already in place. Let them, establish themselves over the course of the project before we dedicate that to you guys in the future phase. We do want to maintain ownership of that at this time, just to help with, if we do want to get in there and do some more work, we do have to make, the pond connections and construct Authors Ave. So it just makes more sense for us to maintain ownership of that at this time. For the rest of the open space areas, I think our general plan is to keep them at this point, with the exception of open space A, which is going to be the ones behind lots 1 through 7, and have that one pond that will house the portion of the Lehigh Valley Trail that is going to route through our project. One of the town comments actually was to change the easement area into that, incorporate it into open space A. We did give the town a 10-foot easement behind lots 9 and south along that western border. So what we're going to do is just effectively take that easement away and then make the open space a flag lot. So there's not an easement through those properties. It'll just be owned by the town. And that way you don't have to deal with the residences. So we have no issues making that change. The rest of the open space areas we're going to maintain. As you guys may remember, open space area D was one that we had a sensitive SHPO area in. This was a site that was identified by SHPO. This is going over at the eastern portion right there. We ended up having to revise our road to work around that. That was the historical site from a drummer boy from the Revolutionary War that had a house and foundation up there. So as opposed to going through the entire excavation process through SHPO to remove the resource and protect it, which is kind of an open pocketbook. You never really know when that might end. The more you find, the more you end up having to do. We're approaching that with avoidance and protecting it. So that's been delineated in the field already with orange construction fence. And then, once we get, again, the roads and everything kind of constructed around the perimeter, we'll do our final cleanup and then turn that over to the town with the future sections.
James, can you point out where that is?
That is open space D, right where Craig's got his
Right there?
cursor on my
Okay.
page. Yeah, right there, kind of where the road just bends out instead of continue straight. The original plan, it kind of continued straight, and we had, several more lots in there. So we did have reconfiguration. That's kind of where we ended up adding a couple more on that stub lots.
Okay,
What is it, 87 through 90 right now?
thank you.
Just to kind of displace those. Schedule wise, I think we're looking, ideally to get approval tonight for section 1, pending wrapping up all the comments from engineering and town staff. As I mentioned, we're already starting with our grading permit work like that. So we're looking to potentially start some utilities over the winter or in the late fall, and then be looking to start house construction next year and continue with the project. The couple items I think we probably need to go over before I get to the seeker ones are on the fire apparatus access road. We did get comments from building and fire codes, as well as the fire marshal, on providing a fire apparatus access road. Once we pass 30 lots, the requirement is you need 2 points of access. We responded yesterday to the comments that we would just beef up the construction access drive, which is the conversations I had with the fire marshal as well as the code guy. I think after kind of discussing it a little bit more today, we would like to leave it a little more open-ended, whereas once we get close to our 30 lots, we will make the decision whether we want to expand our construction access drive, because we're only proposing 15 at this point for what we need to bring in tractor trailers to meet the 20-foot fire department and fire code requirements. Or if we're at a good point in the project where it just makes more sense to complete the connection to Authors Ave. And just kind of as a frame of reference, we're building about 2,000 linear feet of construction access drive just to get to East Henrietta Road for the secret condition, whereas Authors Ave is only about 700 feet long. So by the time you add the extra width, you're kind of talking half the road anyways. So instead of just kind of sinking costs elsewhere, we may elect to do that at that time. We understand that we have 57 lots and, we cannot, go past the 30 before that's addressed. So that's something that we would like to, I guess, kick the can on a little bit, just so we know where we stand. If everything sells, maybe that just makes more sense to, roll into some of the section 2 items and build them out. I think the last things then were the secret conditions that the town board placed on us. I know we wanted to kind of touch on those as well as establish some value amounts. I know Bruce and Paul had some offline meetings with some town staff. So I'll just go through the 6 of these, how we're addressing them, and then kind of what was discussed, just to make sure everybody's in agreement on that end. So the first one was the Nevins Road sidewalk. The offline discussion agreement was that we contribute monies equal to the stone and concrete work associated with that, with a maximum limit or cap of around $70,000. And then the work would not be completed by the developer. This is something that the town would kind of take the reins on doing. So that was the first one. The second one was the mitigations on Authors Ave for the school. So that was agreed to for contribution of monies equal to 2 raised crosswalks with a maximum limit or capacity of a $24,000 contribution. And again, that would be no work completed by the developer. We'll let the town coordinate that. The third one is the construction traffic not going through the subdivision. So as I mentioned, we're building about 2,000 linear feet of drive, through the rugby lands to facilitate that. So that's been addressed. Number 4 is the drainage improvements from the rear of the lots. As I mentioned, we're diverting water away, so that addresses that. The 5th one was the sound impact from the throughway. Obviously, what we've been saying all along is we want to do this with landscape plantings. And it's also very important to just screen the proposed lots from the throughway as much as possible, because they really want to make these marketable. So it's very important to us. So we'll be reviewing the landscaping, making adjustments based on town comments, and then adding the additional plantings that we do plan to supplement that. And then obviously, once all the houses get built, there, and all the other vegetation in the open space we've already planted starts to grow, it just creates more and more buffers to those existing residences. And the existing residents are anywhere from about 1,000 to about 1,500 feet away from the edge of the travel lane and throughway. So they have a pretty good separation already, and the topography does help buffer it in certain areas. And then I think the last one was the traffic impact. And that had to do with when we originally came in, there was concerns about all the traffic and specifically the light at Authors Ave because of the school and how that operates. We did go through a pretty extensive review period over about the course of a year with the state DOT. We did a traffic study. Basically, what it showed was that we don't really hit the specific warrants to justify in the DOT's eyes a traffic light need there. However, the supervisor is pretty adamant about that and still feels like it would be something beneficial to the town. So what ended up resulting was there would be an escrow account created with contributions from the developer specifically for installation of a traffic light at that location. However, it would be evaluated, once the build out and occupancy is a bit higher or at the full length of the site. So the only thing I think with that is we'd like to talk about how we're going to make those contributions. Obviously, we don't feel like we should pay the whole $120,000 up front with the first phase of this. So we were hoping to prorate it based on the number of lots we were looking to do. So $120,000 divided by the 110 lots, so it'd be about $1,000, about $1,090 per lot, give or take. So we'd be looking to do about like 62,000 and change with the first section, and then pay the rest of it into the escrow account as we, develop those lands. And then we also want to establish a timeline for when that would end, because I think it was kind of left open-ended as we were thinking it could be 5 years, or to kind of when we get the full project build out and it can be evaluated again for what the need of that light is, just so it's not hanging out for 10, 15, 20 years at the developer's expense. So those are kind of the big picture things on the project. I'm happy to discuss or address any questions you guys have. And I know Bruce and Paul would be happy to jump in as well.
Great. Yeah, thank you, James. Are these homes going to be the same style of models that we have on Howlett Acres, basically? So those, yep, okay. Okay. And that's turned into a very nice subdivision over there. So, all right. Well, the chair will open it up to discussion. Now we'll start with Mrs. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome.
Well, two of my questions you've already addressed, which was the open spaces and the traffic study. And I was reading through the comments that said lot 8 is less than required 8,500 square feet. Has that been?
Yeah, so what we'll
Address.
do is we're gonna adjust that. That was actually, it wasn't originally less than 8,500 square feet. When we were working with Vanguard Engineering on some drainage revisions, we ended up incorporating an additional bioretention area behind those lots. So we pulled the lots back, so that would be in the, town open space and combined with that. So we'll just have to shift the lot line. I think we need to move it back about like 5 or 6 feet to accommodate the discrepancy. So we will update that for sure.
Thank you. Those are my only questions. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Mrs. Reynolds. Chair will recognize Mr. Liss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
You mentioned earlier, Mr. Chairman, about these homes are going to resemble the same that you have in what subdivision? Is that in Walworth and Macedon?
No, Howlett Farms over on East River
And Erie
Road,
State.
Erie Station.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. And these are going to be, these are considered starter homes?
Yes, I think they would be.
Pricing starting at? Do we have a
It's
figure?
kind of, I don't know what the price is going to be at this point because it's kind of market
Yeah,
value
it's kind
and
of
construction
strange.
costs keep going up and,
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there certainly is a need.
Yeah, there'll be starter homes in terms of, the most that is nowadays.
Now I had a question on Chris Martin's comments. Under general, the location of Lehigh Station Trail needed to be discussed. This says the town has been in discussions with the adjacent property owner at 1233 Lehigh Station Road. They have a portion of the trail located on their property. Has that been?
Yeah, I can address that. So I meant to say Lehigh Valley Trail. This is what happens when you do things late at night.
That's right.
But so yes, Ted Hosmer owns the property to the west. We've had some preliminary conversations with him that he may be willing to grant us an easement, which may be preferred rather than, either going on an easement on somebody else's property, on the residential property rather. But nothing's finalized yet.
Okay.
Like I said, it's just been in informal discussions. So as things proceed, we'll have a more formal discussion, a plan on how that's going to be. So either the decision will be, we have a 10-foot strip along the back property lines that the town's going to own, or we get an easement from Hosmer just west of that.
All right. But that access road at Hosmer is not being used. That's not being used in any way during the construction, correct?
No, we don't have any rights to use that. And I don't even know
Or
that
by the
the
rugby.
trail has rights to use that either.
You're using the land from the rugby club.
Yep.
And then while you're doing section 1, you described earlier, where's the easement to the trail? Is it by
So-
number 9?
Yeah, on the plans today, we're going from what is lots 9 down to lots 13. So it's that first 10 feet along that strip, basically on the other side of those trees. But that's what will turn into part of open space A. So we're gonna get rid of the easement and just make it town land. So that way, again, you're not dealing with the residences. It's under your control.
Will trail use be affected while during the construction? For
No, I think our intent is to really try and maintain it because obviously people are gonna get out there and use the trail regardless. So we really don't want to shut it down. I think there's already been trail improvements as part of our grading permit because the trail at the location we're showing within the first 10 feet was kind of solidified at that point. Obviously, if it changes, we can accommodate that, but that was one of the first things that the town identified that they wanted opened and maintained. So I believe they've already started working on it and doing some of those improvements based on our grading permit plans.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You had a lot of work and thought have gone into this project, and I look forward to
Thank you.
seeing it come to fruition. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. List. Chair will recognize Mr. Barley.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
James, at one point, were you trying to buy access to where you're using a construction road to get to Eastern Unit Road?
There was never plans to like develop it fully out that way. I mean, our original ideal was to use the Hosmer lands, but we weren't able to ever get an
Mhm.
agreement with them.
Mhm.
That would have obviously saved us quite a bit of cost because we would have been talking a couple 100 feet as opposed to doing 2,000, but obviously we want to, not upset all the residences and things of that nature. So, I mean, it is what it is. I think we're kind of stuck using the construction access drive.
So there was
East
never any
Henrietta.
talk to buy from the Elks Lodge, the land that was back there to kind of come out?
We
East
looked at
Henrietta
some
Road?
of that. Really, the Elks own kind of a portion of it's under the power lines for the throughway, as
Mhm.
well as kind of the wetland areas that are north of it. There's not really a lot of yield for building a true road there. We wouldn't be
Okay.
able to get any more lots, so we'd effectively be building 2,000 linear feet of road without any return on it. So
Okay.
it's just not economically viable for the project.
Gotcha.
We did do a cursory review, because we did look at, okay, can we build some more over here if we do
Mhm.
this? And it wasn't working economically for us.
Okay. As far as house size, square footage, bedroom, would it be anything to be 3,000 square feet or bigger?
I
And
don't think the houses were that big. I feel like we saw they were closer to 2,000.
all right, thank you. What else was there? So the homes at Howlett Farms are bigger than these homes, is that right? They're a little larger over there than what these are gonna be? About the same? Okay.
I don't know if we have him on record.
Oh,
Paul, I'm sorry, would you mind coming up and answering that, or?
Yeah,
James
he
can
said they're
answer on behalf of
approximately the
Paul?
same size as the other development.
Just want to make sure we get that. Thank you.
well, it looks like you've done a great job of kind of laying out all the trees and trails and things, and thanks for taking care of that. We'll look forward to the project, assuming it gets approved. Thanks a lot, James.
Perfect. Thank you.
Nothing else, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Barley. Chair will recognize Mr. Borkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
James, did you sign in?
I did not, and I will before I leave.
Please do. Thanks. One of my questions was construction access. I think we've done that pretty well. Secondly, you talked about the drummer home, drummer boy home. What does that look like? Because I didn't know that was there.
It's like an old remnants of like a foundation. You almost can't even tell. They basically, when they did the golf course, I believe they capped it with like 4 or 5 feet of earth fill because they were just going to leave it and then work over it and not disturb it. So that's kind of where it got triggered once we did, submitted the project and we submitted to SHPO, and then they don't disclose exactly where their resources are
Mhm.
based on, they don't want somebody going out there and trying to dig it up to find something to sell. So they provided us with the mapping and stuff that they had, and we basically used some historical photos and the old golf course layout to kind of position exactly where it was. And then we were able to find a couple little reminiscences of things that we thought might be, some kind of foundation
Significance.
structure things. So that's how we kind of delineated it. And then what we did was we talked with SHPO and worked on like a buffer size based on where they had those. I think we ended up giving them another 30 feet beyond where they had identified the resources. Typically they require 50, but because we were able to position it pretty precisely based on everything, they were comfortable with the 30-foot we gave them.
Is there going to be any signage there? So when these new neighbors that move in here are not going to know anything about that if it's not obvious, is there going to be something to say, don't disturb this area?
I mean, it's gonna be dedicated to town. I mean, I think it's kind of, we'll leave it up to you guys how you
Okay.
want to maintain it. I don't think that we would want to like create identification that there's some kind of resource here, because same reason, you're just kind of telling somebody, there might be something valuable here that they can go try and dig up.
And Chris, we wouldn't have any problem taking that kind of dedication?
We went through the open space process. Comfortable with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, then if it's the towns, then we'll figure something out.
Yeah, I think there was some discussions at some point of maybe doing like some like boulder seating or, some basically disruptive, measures in there to kind of improve that open space area, but I don't think we have any hard plans at this point yet.
Okay. And my big thing was the general one, which you got into your 6 things for the seeker. What I want to do is clarify, what do we have to determine here? You mentioned installing the light at a different time, so there's gonna be an extra escrow there. How much is that gonna be? I don't think you give me a number on that.
The contribution that we'll make is 120,000, but that's for the whole project. So I think
Right, so I'm seeing 70, I got 94 here.
so the 70,000 is a contribution for the sidewalks.
24 is for,
The raised
Mid-
crosswalks on authors,
Right.
and then the 120 is to go into the escrow account for the traffic light.
okay, so it's an additional 120 on top of the 70 and 20. Oh, okay.
Yes.
But he mentioned that would come in piecemeal, like 62K.
Yeah, that was my next question. So is it our job, Mr. Mistrella, to figure out what decisions we have to make on, can it be divvied up? Can it be a 5-year term? And that's another thing. So if we get into 5 years, but you're still developing it in 6, which I don't assume you would be, but we have different phases here.
Correct.
So is it 5 years from the end of the last phase?
No, it isn't our job. It's, what I'm going to suggest is that in your approval, you incorporate the conditions in the town board resolution as a condition of your approval. And
So we would just
you
simply say
let the
conditional.
Town board worry about
Con-
how they want it done.
Our condition is that they adhere to the resolution 10-172.
Yeah, and I'm going to have a couple of questions of the applicant
Okay.
about that.
Yeah, that's a clerical issue, but that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Borkowski. I heard the drummer boy moved out when he heard the throughway was coming through. So,
That's right.
okay, the chair will recognize Mr. Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any additional comments. This plan has been back in front of us many times. Mr. Howlett and the group have answered many mitigations, as you see, and also with the dollar value that you see in escrows and et cetera, with walkways, paths and et cetera. I would have, requested lights going down the main road, but with all the other outlining expense that he's had, construction, access, and et cetera, I've pulled that back myself just because of all the other additional expense he's had to develop. So I don't have any comments also based on that. The site has been given approval of a grading permit. Your SWIP was approved and they did receive a DEC permit to go out and start. So this, about a month ago, I think, actually met out on site, which was the perfect time to, in a sense, open this critter up so that we can get it graded and then turn it green again. Mr. Howlett is very apt in what he does with this work. He was very helpful in the Howlett Acre subdivision. So we were more than happy to work with him and give him some leeway, if you will, on this, and let him go in there and start working on that now, even without the approval of the plan set yet. He has planted, I think, over 100 trees already preemptively in this site, and open space areas, et cetera, where they can be planted and developed from there. So he's even been gone above and beyond on the landscaping. And you will, I don't know how much has been turned green yet, but willing to turn things green as soon as things get graded and before the winter hits, and they can start building houses or utilities and et cetera as they get forward. So he's been a great developer to work with, and we're excited about this project.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Eckert.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask one more question?
Yes, Mr.
Is
List.
there a homeowners association affiliated with this project?
Not at all.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question also, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
to,
Mr. Barr.
I was wondering about utilities. Would Greenlight be in there when you lay utilities? Who's gonna be in there for internet and cable and? that kind of-
RG&E is kind of the point person for who coordinates, and then they obviously kind of disseminate to, all the people that are available. So you'll have the typical gas, cable, telephone, electric, and then if there's green light in the area, they have the ability to install conduits and stuff at that same time. I'm not sure if that's something that will be brought into this or not.
Can you answer that, Mr. Howlett? No? Okay. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Mr. Barley. Okay, Mr. Mistrella.
Is some probably what are really housekeeping details. You indicated that lot 8 is going to be enlarged to meet the requirements of the town. So that's should be a condition of approval because we can't approve a substandard lot without it getting a variance. You also indicated that on lots 9 through 13, 10 feet at the rear of the lots is going to be dedicated to the town. Is that correct?
Correct. That will be incorporated into open space A.
Okay, so it should be a condition of the approval then that the town board accepts dedication of that land. It's a requirement of 278 and our code. And the planning board doesn't have the authority to do that. So that'll just be a condition that the town accept it. And then turning to the 6 what you called seeker conditions in the town board resolution. Regarding the traffic impact, number 1 on Nevins Road and the traffic impact on the elementary school. The town resolution indicates you're going to install the sidewalks and install a tabletop crosswalk, but instead you're proposing to provide funds for the installation of those things. Is that correct?
Correct. That was the discussions that Bruce and Paul had with,
Okay.
with, I believe, Steve and, some other people
Fine,
from town.
and then, and on number 6, regarding the traffic light, you want to work out some prorated contribution schedule with a conclusion date, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I think it would be fair that as an addition, as a third condition, that the applicant must meet the conditions set forth in resolution 14-218 of 2022 by the town board to the satisfaction of the town board, because those items are items that should be dealt with the town board and however they want to delegate the administrative authority for that.
You said it was 14-21A.
It's 14-218
8.
of 2022. An approval made on June 22nd, 2022.
And Mr. Mistrella, what was your first condition on regarding lot 8?
Lot 8 being lot 8 meeting the requirements of the Henrietta Town Code as far as area goes.
Thank you.
I've got that written down. I've got.
You do, okay.
Be enlarged to meet standard requirements. Town board accepts dedication of land. An applicant adheres to 14-218 of 2022 to the satisfaction of town board.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Borkowski. Mr. Martin, any comments from you, sir? Okay, very good. Now the chair will entertain a motion.
So moved. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve application. Where am I? I got Conservation Board.
Here you go.
PB 329.1, along with the comments. Mr. Borkowski wanted the list.
Yep, I'll do it one more time. Condition, lot 8B enlarged to meet standard requirements. Second condition, town board accepts dedication of land, per section 278. Application adheres to 14-218 of 2022 to the satisfaction of town board. And I'm going to say that the application adheres to town board resolution 10-172/2022.
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Very good, Mr. Barley. Thank you. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're excited to continue to get this going.
We're excited as well. Much appreciated. All right, board, we've got a couple discussion items next, first is Town Place Suites by Marriott. We are to discuss approving a 6-month extension for application number 22-016 that was approved on September 20th, 2022. This project is to be located at Kenneth Drive in an industrial zone district. Who's here representing the applicant? Anybody? No. Okay. Yeah. I think so. Now this will be the site behind the Dunkin' or the Taco Bell? Behind Taco Bell.
To the
Okay.
Taco Bell. Yes.
So we have a hotel across the street there behind Dunkin', don't we? Coming in too. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yep. Okay. So this will be the one behind the Taco Bell.
This is the one.
We
behind-
approved this back in 2022.
And there's two others that are in that area, right?
Well, we've got one behind the Dunkin' over there, and then the third one is by the library that we're talking about.
Correct.
Yeah, those are the three that are pending right now.
All right.
Okay. The chair will make a motion to extend this application for another 6 months. Have sufficient second, please?
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Farley.
We only give one extension, right? Then they have to pay for the fee to extend after that point? Remember that correctly?
No, I think they can get multiple extensions.
I think
Multiple
we've
extensions?
done, I think we've done up to 3.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Okay. All right. Thanks for answering my question.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Borkowski.
Nice to know if they had a plan, but
Discussion?
it'd just be nice to know if they had a plan, but yeah.
Oh.
But.
Yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. In the chair, the ayes have it. We've got an extension on the application. Thanks, everybody. Okay, last item this evening, Rivers Edge Townhomes, discussion item. We are to discuss revisions to the plans for application number PB 334 for a 226 lot subdivision of single-family townhomes located at 85 and 135 Lehigh Station Road in an industrial zone district with a mixed-use employment center overlay district. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Burns with Pastor Associates, also with.
What's your name again? I'm sorry.
Andrew Burns, Pastor Associates. Also with me tonight is the applicant Brian McKinnon, representing East River Henrietta LLC. And I believe online we have Blago Gorevsky representing the home builder, NVR and Ryan Homes.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're obviously here again for our second or third discussion regarding some revisions to this plan of the Rivers Edge Townhome Project located at 85-135 Lehigh Station Road. Following our last discussion with the board, hearing your feedback as well as a meeting with town staff on August 30th, we decided to make the following revisions to this layout. The first being a dedicated 22-foot through road from East River. It starts in blue there, and I can go through the color coding in a second, which would extend to the south through the south portion of our townhome site and stubbing in to the adjacent property for future connection to Lehigh Station Road. The remaining residential roads in green there will also be dedicated to the town and built to town standards, including but not limited to crowned roadways, concrete gutters for stormwater management, as well as concrete sidewalks. In addition to, all those items, we did provide an additional 70 off-street parking spaces, bringing our total to 518, which was a request by this board as well as the Conservation Board. In doing all that, we still maintain the original proposed plus or minus 2,000 square foot of walking trails, as well as the dog park and gazebo, which are both planning to go in the first phase. With that, we believe we've addressed all town concerns and comments to date. We're eager to be back here next month for hopeful preliminary overall approval. And with that, we're here to answer any questions the board may have.
All right. Well, thank you very much for doing that. I know those were huge concerns and we appreciate your attention to those matters. So we are just in discussion tonight. I'll open it up to anybody that would like to make a comment. Mr. Eckert?
Yeah, I'll start. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just have a couple of comments. Much approved, much appreciated. One of my actual thoughts back, which may be able to be a cost savings, is dedicated road C needed? If it's not, maybe it can go away. My thought was maybe it just become a stone path between the two and therefore access to the dog park. You've got sidewalks on the north and south side. So if somebody's walking from the sidewalk down to the dog park, they're gonna walk in that road. But no sense adding, in a sense, the sidewalk to a road if it is just a cut through. So I don't know if that's a needed internal road or not. That's a decision you can make, but I don't know if there's any other requirement in town that would require a cut through at that location or anything else. Maybe just a stone path can be more of an access point between the two. So that was one of the comments that I had. Some of these are really just meant for the highway superintendent when he takes a look. I thought that 11-foot roads were okay if they had gutters, otherwise they had to be 12 for trucks and emergency equipment. But again, that's in a review and a highway superintendent comment. It was interested too with the truck traffic, but it looks like that can continue. Now, these are still gonna be under an HOA.
Correct. There'll be HOA land outside of that, dedicated right of way.
Yeah, so they're gonna have to be, all these parking areas off the road will be to the HOA. Require them to clear them, plow them, still push the snow. The plows will go by and unfortunately leave a lot of snow there. So there's conflict with those. So only time it's been allowed before again is on an HOA, right, Chris? Okay, so that will still be HOA managed, maintained. I guess I don't know if it's on here. The previous review, number of units wasn't listed. Required densities specified in the site data. Is it required density in the site data?
It should be, and if it's not, we will absolutely include that on our.
Yeah, I think it just says per town code. So proposed is 9.8, but required is not listed. So I wasn't sure between the communications. I've just heard so many numbers.
Okay.
Didn't want to get it wrong. I don't know if you know what that is, or you can make that adjustment when.
I believe that the required is 12.
Yeah, and that's okay right now. This is again just for discussion. So just making a note of some of the things that I commented on. But the sidewalks are a great improvement, especially when they're right off the road. These will be easy enough to clear, I think, for highway. We'll take a look at this too. We have done this before, where the plow trucks can, in a sense, wing them, drop the wing and kind of clear the sidewalks, which makes it, they get cleaned more often, let's put it that way, than a sidewalk plow. Sidewalk, I don't think we even have a sidewalk plow going off to the side. So they would get cleared very minimally in the winter versus when they're right up against it. I think that's a good benefit for both.
I'm sorry, are these private roads?
No. These are now
You're all dedicated. You're all dedicated. So when it says dedicated, that means it is a town road.
Right.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
And I know they're pretty close to the road. Again, we like to see some sight lighting, even at intersections. I'm not sure, again, we can take a look and see what kind of bus routes will go through here. And where kids are gonna possibly stack and store, waiting for buses, might be a good place for a light. There's one or two throughout. If I know that these houses are pretty close to the road, so maybe the house mounted lights will be enough. So just would look at some of the safety for the kids, I'm sure the bus is only gonna stop maybe once or twice at one at either end of this, so to speak. Or possibly in the middle, depending on what the bus feels is safe. Might want to just have a communication with the transportation department. Nope, sorry, I got a hand up. You sure, just right up to the mic if you will. That's just a comment more than anything.
I just figured I'd clarify because I know Blog was on the line. I'm Brian McKinnon, the developer with Krista and East River Henrietta LLC. The lighting is meant to be on the dwelling, porch lighting, maybe above the garage, because of exactly what you said. So there is not site lighting contemplated right now.
Okay. My request is just to discuss that with the transportation department, see if one light or two would be beneficial to if there's a lot of children here and they have to stack at one corner or the other. We just see a lot of conflicts with snow plowing in winter. No place for them to stand and without lights or some place for them to see. So just a discussion item is all. The only thing I'm bringing up is a comment. And that is the end of the comments that I had from my review.
Thank you, Mr. Eckert. Mr. Borkowski?
Nothing for me.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Barley?
I agree, Mr. Eckert, about the lighting for children when they're catching the bus in the morning. It's pretty dark. And that would be a good safety measure to have out on a couple of the corners. It's a good thought, Craig. The density, that never changed. Same amount of units?
Correct, from the original special use permit approval from the town board.
You added parking?
Correct.
How many?
Since our original submission to the planning board, I believe we added 36 parking stalls.
Okay,
Again, those are all the off-street parking
gotcha.
maintained by the HOA.
I have a comment and really a question to Craig and Mr. Martin about projects and we run into density issues all the time on our board. And if that's the norm, we run into density problems with these projects, cramming too much stuff in areas, because actually the density is an issue for me. Everything else is great. Does it make sense to look at our density and adjust?
Yeah, and let me try to answer part of that. So this is kind of a unique project because it's located in an overlay district.
Mhm.
And as part of that, the density is a little different than it may be for other places in town that's maybe an R115 zoning or R120. But because it's an overlay district, and I'll just go through a brief history. Initially, there's apartment units, as you know, to the north.
Mhm.
And then the southern piece was actually supposed to be all industrial. But we do have a section in our code under the overlay district that says that you can put townhouses, make them single family homes, but townhomes as part of that, as long as you have a certain percentage. And I'm trying to remember if it was I think it was based on acreage, if I'm not mistaken. But there's also something in our town code that does say that you can't exceed a certain density. And I'm trying to remember, Andy, I think it was 12 units, but it may have been a little bit higher than that. So as Craig mentioned, that's something that we will want to see on the preliminary plans, the calculations for all that, to make sure that they still comply with the special use permit that was approved by the town board. So the town board is the one that set the density for this. And sometimes you can get incentives to kind of boost that number up.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to rack my brain if there were some incentives in this as part of that, but that's something that obviously we want to see to make sure that what was indicated in the special use permit is still in play with this new layout.
Absolutely.
So if I'm sure that there was a complete answer. The short answer is that would be up to the board to change the density requirements of ACP, right? And that's a special use permit that was granted. But yeah, you're not wrong. I think we've, over the past 2 years, I don't know if it's a COVID thing again, supply chain cost concept that we've seen higher density requested.
Yeah.
Just due to, I think, construction material costs more than anything as much. But if that's the quicker answer.
Yeah, that's my question. I mean, I understand from the developer's standpoint, you want to put more in because it's more profit. I understand that the code's there for a reason, though, for density.
Yeah.
And if that's going to be the thing, no matter if it's for this overlay district or if it's for a 278 or for anything, everything seems to be condensed. It's always a little bit more dense than what we need, it seems 90% of the time. So, I guess in looking at all these things and it always coming up, it just resonates to me that maybe we need to look at some things and make a hard rule so that we're not always bending the rules for a special permit to let these things happen. That's my thought.
Is that in our purview, Dan, so to speak, or?
Well, it's not in our purview. It would have to be town board.
Yeah, well, no, I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
We are.
It's just,
Yeah, it's totally town board driven.
When it goes back to our parking and, our sign code,
Right.
everybody comes in for a variance.
right, exactly.
Everybody comes in for a variance, everybody gets one.
Right,
What's it? Right.
right.
Yeah, but you know, it's the purview of the planning board is to make sure they don't approve something that doesn't comply with the
Exactly.
requirements,
Right.
not to set what the requirements are.
Right. True. Yeah. Just a thought. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'm all
Okay,
done.
Mr. Barley, thank you. Mr. List,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
you're welcome.
On a comment from Chris Martin on July 17th, number 14, for the townhomes that have sidewalks, it appears only 10 feet is provided from the sidewalk edge to the front of the garage. Did you address that?
Yeah, that's since been addressed by moving those sidewalks adjacent to the gutter. I think we provided 22 or 24 foot minimum driveway for parking area for all units on site.
And the HOA, I'm not a big fan of homeowners associations, but this one seems to be in place here. What will that encompass? What's that going to provide the homeowner?
Good evening, Splago Ryan Holmes.
To speak to
I am
that,
on. So the HOA will be limited to the
Let's
maintenance
see
of,
if he's also ready. Bye, Blago.
good evening. Just want to talk to the HOA. As far as the HOA is concerned, the HOA will address the plowing of the driveways, individual driveways, lawn maintenance, and the thought process also to have one collection firm that will do all the refuse for all the homeowners throughout the community.
It won't encompass their landscaping requirements or lawn ornaments, things like that.
There'd be limited landscaping in the front of the units, and we're still going back and forth and working through that with the offering plan, if that's gonna be part of it and how that will be driven. But we will be installing limited landscaping up front, and either will be maintained by the homeowner or the HOA might take it over. It's still up for debate at this point.
Okay, all right. In the homes, the backyard, is that fencing? Is that fenced in? Is that for my site plan?
It's not fenced in at the moment.
Not fenced. So those yards that back up to the roadway, people will be free to landscape as such.
Yeah, so each of the units will have the lots that each unit will be built on will have at least 10 to 15 feet of additional land from the back of the unit to be able to put a small patio or some type of entertainment space in the back. And at the same time, they can install a divider between the units to the individual neighbor to give them some separation and privacy.
All right. And that's where the zoning board will come into play when someone wants to provide something in their backyard or a shed or such things such as that.
We'll have pretty detailed offering plan with the HOA. The intention here is not to have sheds in a community. So it's going to be pretty detailed as far as what will be allowed and what won't be allowed. Thought process to keep the backyards pretty clear with the exception of some type of improvement in the future for a patio.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. List. Mrs. Reynolds,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
welcome.
Thank you for taking the time. My question, in addition to the lighting comments earlier, were with the addition of the parking spaces, people are now going to have to cross the road to get to their units. There's not going to be any lighting in those additional parking spaces at this point?
no, none are proposed, but again, I will note that each unit will have two of its own private parking spaces. That's more meant for an overflow situation.
Right. Yeah, I'm for safety reasons, I'm just still concerned about the additional lighting possibilities. Thank you. That's all I have right now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, you're welcome.
If I can sum up that too, it's just a discussion. I wonder, if the outside lighting, is that something that could be monitored by the HOA? Again, this is a discussion, and maybe that's a way that if they are, I don't know about required to be on or off at certain times or something that the HOA can help monitor. That way it's not up to each individual to turn them on and off and therefore the safety. If the lights are going to be on, that might be a safety. they're close enough maybe to provide enough light, but if nobody decides to turn their lights on, that doesn't provide any benefit. So maybe that's just back as a discussion, either do this, the building mounted as an HOA oversight, or maybe to just provide a couple of pole lights either on the parking or just in the intersections, just.
Yeah, even though that's supposed to be overflow parking, if people are parking there in the evening, even if they're visiting a unit, they still have to walk across the street in the dark.
Yep.
And if the dwelling lights or above garage lights, to your point, are not on, then that's gonna be a completely dark area. And there'll be could be potentially a number of cars parked along there in those extra spots. It's great to have the extra spots, but personally, if it was dark when I was pulling in there, I wouldn't want to be walking across the street, but that's me. So,
It's a good discussion item.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mrs. Reynolds.
thank you.
Anything else from anybody, Mr. Mistrella? Mr. Martin?
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We'll see you maybe next month or whenever you guys come back.
Yeah, we look forward to it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Blag. Thank you, Brian. Have a good evening.
Yeah, bye.
Okay, we sidebar, Jason. Sort of let you give credit for that.